Australia's World Economic Forum secret agent? Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of people. Hi, John. We're back in the studio and a bit sooner than we expected.
But this all goes around this absolute scandal that we've just seen with the former Prime Minister being a secret minister of now what I just heard today was five portfolios. Yeah. So he was the Prime Minister, he was the Treasurer, he was the Finance Minister, the Health Minister, the Minister for Home Affairs, the Minister for Resources, the Minister for Industry, all in secret. It is by far the biggest political scandal of my lifetime. And I just can't understand how this could have happened. And I'm not sure whether our viewers actually understand the significance, both the constitutional and the legal significance of this. But 20 years ago, I joined the Liberal Party when I was in my early 20s, and I saw systemic corruption in terms of tactics which were seen as political fair play. And you have Morrison, who grew up in that environment, who goes into Parliament and just thinks that Machiavellian tactics, which is acceptable in party politics, can be done at the highest levels of Parliament and the Constitution. It is just disgusting.
Yeah, and it tells us an awful lot about how power works within the parliamentary system or outside it. But it almost feels like a sort of dictatorship, right? Effectively, there's stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. Nobody knows who's making what decisions. And all points go back up to Morrison, who basically was, calling the shots?
Of course, but the other thing is that, which is so significant, is the Governor General. The Governor General has sworn in certain ministers. Those ministers are responsible to Parliament for their conduct, and then he goes behind his own ministers' backs and appoints Morrison as a second minister without telling the first minister. And not only that, he didn't get any legal advice from the Solicitor General. He didn't go to the Chief Justice of the High Court. He didn't tell the Palace in London. The Governor General just said, well, I take the advice of the Prime Minister. This is what the Prime Minister wanted. In 1933, Hitler wanted full power, and he got it. And then look at what happened in Germany then. So this type of collapse of cabinet government is what happened in Germany. It happened in terms of other countries. It is reminiscent of Stalin or Mao, and it is. I cannot believe that Australia has descended into this sort of chaos.
And John, it's worth underscoring, isn't it? Morrison's come out this morning and said, well, it was all about COVID, right? And in those situations, it was absolute chaos. And what we were trying to do is to ensure that government continued even if the people got sick, right? But you got to say, well, hang on, did all of those movements of ministerial power happen in that first COVID period?
No, look, absolutely right. Some of these appointments happened in 2020. Some of these appointments happened in 2021. But again, if a minister did get sick, there are legal procedures that Morrison could have implemented with the Governor General to have interim ministerial appointments to cover in terms of their sick ministers. So again, COVID has nothing to do with this. And one of the key points, Martin, that I think our audience needs to understand is Australia has a dual constitutional system. So we've taken apart from England and we've taken apart from America. So what we drew from America was the written constitution, and so everyone knows what that is. But the other part of our constitutional system is what's unwritten. And obviously the UK doesn't have a written constitution. They have conventions. So there is a way of how Parliament is supposed to behave. And those things have been passed down through centuries. Well, for example, the office of Prime Minister is technically not in the Constitution, but we know what the Prime Minister does and who that person is because we've taken those rules from England and implemented this. So when ministers of the Crown are accountable to Parliament, again, the Parliament needs to know who is the minister, and this goes back 400-500 years in terms of the history of England. And again, so if the Governor General says, well, there's nothing's written down to say that I can't or can do this or this or this. No, the Governor General, who's a military general, perhaps not as smart as Napoleon, has no idea about the office in which he holds and what is actually involved in understanding the conventions that we inherited from the UK.
And I think that's very important to understand. The conventions may not be written down, but they are a very strong backbone of the way that things are done.
Exactly.
Yep.
And when those conventions are not followed, what happens? You have chaos. You have a collapse of in terms of our parliamentary system. We've gotten to the stage, Martin, where the Prime Minister, and I'm not just talking about Morrison, but I'm probably talking even if you go back to, say, Howard or Keating or Hawke, there's a view that the Prime Minister has huge power that is above and beyond the cabinet colleagues. So, and now this whole concept has gotten out of hand to the extent that the Prime Minister Morrison has believes that he can do whatever he wants. So, but the institution of cabinet is, if we go back through English history, it's a group of royal advisors to advise the monarch, king or queen, about the affairs of state. Now, in the royal court, these advisors were supposed to be equal. So in the British tradition, and I've heard this say about, for example, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister of the UK, he had to be reminded, you are not dictator, yep. You are the first among equals. Now, so what is this expression, the first among equals? Because historically in the royal court, everyone was supposed to be of equal weight advising the monarch, and there was no one particular leader. So when a few centuries ago, when one person sort of stood up and it was appearing to be the leader in the royal court, the term Prime Minister was actually an insult. It wasn't actually a positive term. So let's actually put slide 3 on the screen. So this actually comes from an official website of the UK government. So there's a quote, the title Prime Minister was originally a term of abuse rather than a description of an official role. It implied that an individual subject had risen improperly above others within the royal circle and had echoed of a political institution imported from France, England's great enemy. So the Prime Minister, now obviously the role of the Prime Minister has evolved since, say, the 15th or 16th centuries. But Prime Ministers, doesn't matter of which political party that they're from, have to be reminded that they, while they are sort of the head of the government, that they have equal standing.
I think that what's happened is that the American presidential system has sort of infiltrated the thinking of a lot of leaders here in Australia. And I rather think that they think the Prime Minister is sort of veering more towards the manifestation of power as the president. And that's part of the problem.
Yes. I mean, so particularly in election campaigns, the media likes to go around and follow the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition and say, you speak on behalf of your party, what is your position? Rather than they should be actually interviewing like a whole host of ministers and saying, well, you are the government. So the government is of 15, 20 colleagues, and we're going to ask for your views on behalf of the government.
A vacuum can often lead to it being invaded. And part of the problem, I think, is the vacuous way that the politicians have been behaving and working allows this to happen, because they're actually not only not understanding the heritage, but their behaviour is also completely off key as well. So they put those two things together and we end up with this mess that we've got.
Indeed. One of the things I told a senator in terms of yesterday by text message, I said, you have to now support an inquiry into the coalition, because I said, people will not listen to you if they don't trust you. And why should anyone vote Liberal or National in terms of the 2025 federal election? Because you don't know who's going to be the PM. You don't know who's going to be the minister. Are we going to have more secrets? Are we going to have a transparent government that's accountable to Parliament, and Parliament actually knows who's got what legal power? I mean, so I mean, this is such a crisis of confidence that and again, not just the coalition, but every parliamentarian needs to say this can never happen again. And to be honest, if criminal sanctions need to be put on Morrison, then I think he needs to go to jail, because what he has done is the biggest assault on democracy since 1788.
Yeah, it's horrendous, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I wonder whether they will try and sweep it into the long grass, John, or whether, in fact, the true significance of this will actually force them to actually change their behaviour and change their attitudes. Because actually, maybe this is actually what needs to happen to wake people up and make politicians work for us rather than against us.
Well, the thing is that if there is an attempt in Canberra to sweep this under the carpet, I think the people should say we don't accept it. We demand. Heads have to roll.